Going to start the funeral service for Mrs. Tsipora Hahamy. Rabbi Aaron Wolf from the Chicago Mitzvah Campaign will be officiating. And at this time, we're going to ask the pallbearers to please come to the hearse as we escort Mrs. Hahamy to her grave. For those of you who are here, please take a moment to be sure that your cell phones have been turned off.
No, we're not allowed.
You're not allowed. I'm sorry. What is it? Come over here.
I thought I was going to shift because I looked strong, but it turns out I was going to shift because I wasn't awake.
You place the casket on the roller. Let it go.
I'll begin with Psalm 23, 23rd Psalm. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai roi lo yechzor, b'nos deshi yabitzeni, amei menuchotni na'aleini, nafshi yishovev yacheni v'mag l'tzedek l'ma'an shemo, gam ki elech b'geit salmovet, lo ira ra ki ata imadi shiftecho mishantecho heimo yenachamuni ta'aroich lefanai shulchan neged tzorerai tishanta v'Hashem en roshi koisi revaya ach tov v'chesed yidefuni kol yemei chayai v'shafti b'veis Adonai le'orech yamim. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He has me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He revives my soul. He guides me on paths of righteousness for his glory. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no harm, for you, God, are with me. Your rod and your staff do comfort me. You set a table in sight of my enemies. You anoint my head with rich oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall abide in the house of the Lord forever. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a very, very sad day indeed. We have gathered here today to pay tribute, pay our respect, and bid farewell to Tsipora Hahamy, Tsipora Patra Moshe. A dear wife for many, many years, 65 years, a devoted mother, mother-in-law, cherished grandmother, and a dear friend to so many. Many times I ask myself, what's the purpose of a eulogy? What's the purpose of a eulogy? Is it that we want that Tsipora should know, that we all acknowledge the fact that she was a wonderful human being, and there's so much we can talk about her, and we can go on and on and on, right? An hour and 50 minutes, right? Is that the purpose? Or is it to comfort the mourners? I think we can be here all day and all night and talk what a wonderful person Tsipora was. Will that comfort Benny? After everything is said and done, he comes home and she's not there. Will that comfort the children and the grandchildren? David, Ronnie, Barbara, the grandkids. So what is the purpose of a eulogy? Done in every single funeral that I've been at. And the answer is so that you and I and all of us who are listening can follow in her footsteps. Let's hear about her. And I understand Chicago Jewish Funerals has it set up that you can go ahead there and go on their website and you can record a story if you know one. Anything that will allow others to say, wow, this was a special person. Maybe I can apply some of her behavior, some of her character traits. Maybe I can apply that to myself, to my family, to my surroundings. That, I think, is the only reason of a eulogy. And then, if we do it the right way, yes, we no longer have Tsipora in our midst. You can no longer call her up and say, how you doing, Mom? How you doing, Savta? That's what they called her, Savta? That's true, you can no longer do that. But if you follow in her footsteps, and you do the things that she would be proud of you, then, in essence, her life lives on. What she stood for is not something only of the past, but it's something of the present and the future, as long as we follow, we try to emulate her ways. And the ones who can best be the ones to give this eulogy are the children and the grandchildren. No question about it. They're the ones that knew her best. I would probably say Benny should be the one, but Benny is too emotional. He's going to allow his children to do that and his grandkids. So we'll do it in this order. We'll first hear from David and Garrett, Max, Ron, and Madison in her absence. We'll hear her eulogy read by Debbie. And David, you're on.
Thank you, Rabbi. Our mother was born in Yafo. At that time, her family lived in a small subterranean apartment. The story she would tell us on it once in a while from those times was how a pipe in their ceiling would burst and leak sewage into their living space. She fell in love with a dark-complected, curly-haired, dashing young man and was married at 21 years old. They moved to an apartment in the swanky part of Tel Aviv where I was born, and 3 years later, my sister Barb. Life was good and so much more simple at those times. Uncles and aunts, as well as their entire group of friends, all acted as surrogate parents to us. We were always surrounded by so much love. In 1964, my parents made the very bold decision to move to the U.S. Barb and I were the primary reason. They wanted a better future for us. They left behind family, friends, and a vibrant social life. My father came first to set up house in Chicago, and the three of us arrived a year later. The year without my father was difficult, but my mother was constantly soothing us with her calmness and optimism for what lies ahead. Those first few years in cold, gray, and strange Chicago were hard, but could have been much more traumatic than they actually were. Again, my mother was always positive and enthusiastic and comforted all of us repeatedly. I attribute my quick grasp of English to her, as her daily routine was to have me sit down beside her and recite all the Cat in the Hat books that she would bring from the library. She was relentless, and it worked. Ronnie was born a few years later. Those days, we hardly saw our dad. He was constantly working and traveling so that we could become part of the American dream. Once in a while, I would wake up in the middle of the night and hear their conversations. My dad wanted to return to Israel. He had enough. He missed our old life there, our family, and all of their friends. I would then hear my mother quietly soothing and encouraging him. She was able to paint a picture of what success would look like and gently steer him in that direction. She had never-ending optimism. It obviously worked, as here we are. 4 years ago, I had a period where I was in and out of the hospital for 3 months. My mother would show up and sit by my side every single day. She didn't miss even one. She was there to make me laugh or to tell me a story and to make friends with all the doctors and nurses. I'd feel bad that she's spending all her time with me in the hospital room, but she brushed me off in her typical, "Get over it and accept it, I'm not leaving your side." All of my friends know and adore my parents. I'm sure they like my dad a lot, but no doubt it's my mom's boisterous, loving, and accepting personality that mostly resonates in their memories. And this is how I and all who knew her will remember her as. Always happy, content, positive, and very, very uplifting.
So, Garrett wrote something to say about Safta yesterday also. He said, "I think Safta was funny, fun, and I liked hanging out with her. We used to take walks, eat, sing, and dance at parties. When I was little, I would swing with her. I liked spending Hanukkah with her. I'm sad she died. I loved her."
Okay. So there's a lot of strong women in this family, and I think that it's no coincidence that my Safta was the matriarch. All of you live on and are strong today because of the precedent that she set. Being an immigrant and coming here and being the absolute best matriarch that she could be. She was a light. She was the enthusiasm that David was mentioning was the light was super bright. Her laugh, I'll never forget it. As my dad said, she always laughed at my jokes. That is 100% how most people would remember her. As someone who they would want to bring along to any function, someone who has a good time. I just want her to rest peacefully, and let's all live by her example.
So obviously, we all know each other here deeply. There's really nothing that you're going to hear from me that you don't already know. I did have a few thoughts that I wanted to share. To her great disappointment, my daughter cannot be here today. I was speaking with her on the phone and discussing with her the logistics in coming in for this day and dealing with quarantining in and out of New York. I was trying to stress to her how I or anyone else certainly wasn't going to judge her for not being able to come, but at the same time, I was trying to tell her that I didn't think it was necessary for her to go through the trouble of coming. And she was basically saying to me, yeah, sure. I hung up with her and I turned to my wife and I said in disbelief, after all I've been saying to her, I think she's actually going to come here for this. And then Debbie said something back to me that I first thought was kind of funny, but there was something really familiar about it. And she said without hesitation, yeah, she gets that from her savta. It's strength. Outside of her loving family and her close friends, the general consensus of people that casually knew my mom was that of someone kind and caring and always quick to laugh or to try to make someone else laugh. She was extremely and vigorously proud of her kids and even more so of her grandkids. She would gloat to perfect strangers about her family. But to the rest of us, the ones that really knew her, she was strong. Strong enough to put up with my dad for 65 years of marriage. She was strong enough to get into a car after sending her kids to school and driving to Winnetka to work as a manicurist in a salon in 1970. Quite an impressive move for an Israeli woman in suburban Chicago in 1970 who hadn't yet mastered the English language. She did this not because we needed the money. She did this because she wanted to, because she was a strong woman. She had a strong mind and a strong body. My mom always did the work. I actually have a memory of her shoveling snow when we were snowed in our tiny house in Morton Grove, and I'm pretty sure she did this in her robe. Whether it was spending an entire day making jushbara because one of her kids was stupid enough to think that he was being funny by saying at the dinner table, "You know what we haven't had in a while?" Or if it's dropping everything to go for an impromptu 4-mile walk on Michigan Avenue with one of her grandkids, whether she felt like it or not, she would do this because she was strong. She would spend weeks with each one of us at our homes to help us with our new babies, no matter where we lived. She was never afraid of work, and she literally always had a spring in her step. She would simply jump up and go, always. I didn't get enough of this great genetic gift from her. I got some of it. I'm sure it's somewhere, and I'll find it later. We all got some of it. My obsessively hardworking brother, my endlessly compassionate sister, their beautiful children, as well as my own beautiful children, all have some of this in them. In case your friends ever wondered where that spunk came from, you should be proud to tell them that this came from your savta. I think about these last 5 months and I get sad. I saw my mom in pain. I saw my mom in incredible discomfort. I saw her without the strength that I once knew. I think we were all a bit shocked at how debilitating these issues that she developed had become and how they completely overwhelmed her body and her mind. I think about how many people would tell me that it's just okay to have these feelings of shock, of sadness, and even a little angriness at times. People would probably tell me that this was a normal part of the grieving process. But then the more I began to think about these things, the more I began to realize that maybe I was wrong. Maybe we were all wrong. Maybe it wasn't true that she was getting weak, and maybe it wasn't true that she was slipping away from us, and maybe it wasn't true that she was no longer the same person we used to know. Because in thinking about Mom and how strong she was for 87 years, maybe it's actually that strength that kept her with us for those last few months. Maybe she was so strong, in fact, so much stronger than any woman in her condition could possibly have been, that maybe we were actually watching her fight instead of what I was so quick to assume was just watching her give up. Maybe all those times we were there and trying to help her get up from bed or from her chair, we were really watching a strong woman persevere through the hardest, most difficult time imaginable. Maybe we were so lucky that she was so strong that we were blessed with 5 more months of witnessing true strength. I always recognize how lucky I am to have had a wonderful, loving, and strong mom in my life for 53 years. We all have friends and relatives who are younger than we are who have lost their parents. Our Jewish faith tells us to recite the Kaddish today. And to me, it's one of the countless perplexing customs and traditions that we have. Here I am in a fog. I just lost my mom, and I'm about to watch her be buried in the ground. I feel sad. I feel I have a great loss. My heart is aching, and I have an emptiness inside of me. And soon the rabbi will hand me a piece of paper, and the first words I will say, the first connection I will make with God since this terrible thing happened to me, and this person who's been in my life for 53 years has been taken away, the first thing I will say in Hebrew is, "Exalted and sanctified be his name." And I'll be honest, I never really got that. If someone just lost his parent, and if you are a believer in God, then you believe like me that this obviously has something to do with God. Why are we exalting him right now? I don't thank the policeman for writing me a ticket. I don't exalt my landlord for kicking me out on the street. I never understood this. The entire text of the Kaddish is basically proclaiming our faith in God and recognizing and reaffirming his greatness. I would go to Shivas and I would watch people mourn, and I never understood why at a time like this, such a low point in their lives, they're supposed to just turn around and exalt God. I never understood this until now. One understanding of this came to me recently, and it's basically to say that this probably isn't about me. This loss just isn't about my loss. It's a loss for many other people as well. I need to recognize that it's not just happening to me. And if I look around a room, I'll see other people saying the same prayer with me, and that this affirmation actually becomes a reaffirmation that we are not alone, that we're all grieving together. And those even that respond amen are also sharing in this process with us. However, I believe a more pertinent and correct answer for me is something even simpler. Why do we have to do this hard thing on this hard day, this terrible, terrible dark day? And I think it's because it takes strength. So I will do this thing in honor of my mom. It will be hard, but I know that I have something inside of me that'll get me through it. So I love you, Dad. I love you, Mom. Please rest peacefully. Thank you.
So Madison ultimately decided that she couldn't really make it home, and then she'd go back to New York and have to come back in a week. But she did write a eulogy for her Savta, and so I'm reading it for her. From Madison. I've never had to write about someone I love who's died. So I initially thought that the best way to go about doing so is to think about memories with Savta. And I have quite a few of those. For example, every single Shabbat since I was maybe 6 or 7, she'd leave me a bowl of cucumber slices because I told her once that I liked them. Every single Shabbat. At one point, after a few months without seeing her and Saba, I had even forgotten that it was a tradition, and then was pleasantly surprised. Or that I used to tell her that her skin felt like a giraffe. I had to be around 4 years old, and to this day, I still have no idea what I meant by that. But Savta laughed, and then didn't let me hear the end of it for years after. Or our impromptu cheesecake factory or water tower lunch dates a few summers ago when I was working downtown. Or when we made dushbara together, or every single time she called me Neshama, or told me she wished she had crazy glue so we could stick together forever. Or when she'd explain in vivid detail the story behind different photos dotting the apartment walls. Like I said, I have quite a few memories, but instead, I want to talk about feelings, because the best way I know how to describe Savta is to talk about how happy she made me. How warm and how loved I felt every single moment that I got to spend with her. A few days ago, my mom FaceTimed me into her room so I could say hi and bless the challah. And even though I'm sure Savta was in so much pain, she still called me beautiful, called me neshama, told me what a nice surprise seeing me was. And I smiled harder than I have in weeks. A Savta-less world is going to be a little less bright, a little less happy, a little less beautiful. But I'd like to think she hasn't completely left. A quick example. As most of you know, we recently lost our golden retriever, Molly. And I'm pretty sure that Molly was Savta's favorite member of the Hahamy family. On Monday, I took a walk from the house I'm at to a state park that's maybe 10 minutes away. And there's a long winding road that leads to the beach. As I'm walking down this trail, I hear barking and see 2 very small dots that I realize as I get a bit closer are 2 golden retriever puppies who are playing close to their owners. Keep in mind that I don't say anything to them, just see them in the distance. And then suddenly, as if on cue, their heads whip around and they full speed sprint towards me, the kind of sprinting that Molly used to do when she saw a squirrel. But there's no squirrel. They're sprinting towards me. And I'm whispering, "This is the best thing ever." And oh my God, under my breath. And then they give me very sloppy golden retriever puppy kisses before turning back and running to their owner. I don't believe in reincarnation, but the thought of Savta and Molly bowling me over with puppy kisses definitely made my day a little better. Savta, I miss you so much, and I know that will never completely go away, but I'm glad that you're not feeling pain anymore, and that I got to tell you how much I love you a few days ago. Thank you for everything. Your neshama, Maddie.
Ron, the question you asked is too difficult to discuss. Maybe one day you and I will have a class again in Glencoe. Remember those good old days? But I have another question. The Shiva period is starting today, and tomorrow night is Hanukkah. How in the world can we celebrate Hanukkah during a Shiva period? That's another very good question, I think. How can we celebrate any holiday during a Shiva period, especially supposed to be Hanukkah, starting tomorrow night. Well, let me tell you something which I thought about this morning, which really connects with Tsipora. The message of Hanukkah in one sentence is to shed light in this dark world. The whole idea, well, many reasons, but the message for us is you put a candle next to the window, to the outside world, next to the front door, different customs. And the point is, I want to show everyone, I want to demonstrate that what is it to be a good human being is to bring light into the darkness of the world. There's a lot of darkness out there. I'm not talking about darkness, when the sun sets. I'm talking about the real terrible craziness of the world. How do we shed light into a dark world? Two ways to do it. You can either fight it, let's fight the darkness, or let's shed light. If there's a dark room, you can fight all day long. It's still going to remain dark unless you brighten up the room. So light will eventually dispel the darkness. You know what I thought this morning? What does Tsipora mean? A bird. But I'll tell you something which maybe some of you know. How do you say Boker Tov? What's Boker Tov? Good morning, right? How do you say good morning in Aramaic? Safra Tava. Safra. Tsipora. Tsipora means light. That's what it means. And the whole Talmud, a good portion of the Talmud was written in Aramaic. Safra Tava is something which is very commonly used in the Talmud. Or whatever. Safra, talking about the morning, talking about Safra. It really means morning, but morning means light. Safra, Tsipora brought a lot of light into this world. Her message to the family and to all those that knew her was and continues to be, let us do whatever we can to bring Safra into the world, bring light, bring happiness into the world. So even though it's a holiday and we're supposed to be happy, but the message of the holiday of Hanukkah is exactly the same message that Tsipora, that Safra stands for. Think about all the goodness and figure out a way, how can I dispel the darkness by adding more and more goodness and kindness into the world. And let us count our blessings. This is a very, very sad day indeed. But, I once went, years ago, when I first started going to funerals, I went to a funeral and they told me right after the funeral, we're going to be meeting in a restaurant. And I didn't understand. What are you going to a restaurant for? I go to restaurants when we have a celebration, whatever, families. What are we going to a restaurant after a funeral? I was very naive. I asked, what is this? Is there a birthday party perhaps in the family today? By coincidence? No. So what are you celebrating? I'm celebrating life. This particular person died, 80, 90, 100. We had very sad days and months at the very end, but we had a beautiful life. I can never forget this woman explaining me the reason why they go to celebrate. They're celebrating the life. So I think perhaps to answer your question to summarize, which really is a longer answer, we are also here today to celebrate 65 years of a beautiful life with Benny, together with Benny. And we're here to celebrate 86 years of her life in this world. We're here to celebrate beautiful family that now will follow in her footsteps. Unfortunately, we will not be able to see her and talk to her anymore, but we could, as I mentioned at the very beginning, by following in her footsteps, we will shed a lot of light into this world. We can all make this world a better world. One good deed. And that's exactly what Tsipora stood for, and that's exactly what she would want us all to do. I will conclude now with a Kel Moler Rachamim, and then we will lower the casket. So, if possible, if able to, please rise for the Kel Moler Rachamim. El Moler Rachamim, Shoicheim Bamerohimim, Hametzei Menucha Nechoino, Tachas Kanfei Ashchino, B'malos Kedosh, Meterim Gezerah Rakia Mazirim, Et Nishma Tsipora Bat Rab Moshe, Sheholcha Liolamo, Babush, no that's talk about us, Karas Nishmoso, Began Eden Temenucha, Solachim Alarachim, yesterday, Besaisa Kenofov, Liolomim, Vitra Betrachai, Mes Nishmoso, Adinoi Hunachaloso, Besonuach, Hamishkava Bishalom, Vinomar, Amen. O God, full of compassion, thou who dwellest on high, grant perfect rest beneath the sheltering wings of thy presence, among the holy and pure who shine as the brightness on the heavens, unto the soul of Tsipora Hahamy, known as Tsipora, the daughter of Moshe, who has gone into eternity, and in whose memory we will continue doing good deeds. May her repose be in paradise. May the Lord of mercy bring her under the cover of his wings forever, and may her soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. May the Lord be her possession, and may she rest in peace. Let us all say Amen.
Amen.
While they lower the casket, we will say the special blessing, as we will do the Kriyah by together with Benny, and then if we Dayan Ha-Emet. Try to pull a little bit more. Pull yourself. Sure. Set yourself. Set. Sure. Right, good. Up. Nice and warm. David? Sure.
Yeah. Okay. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם דיין האמת. דיין האמת.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're just going to pass out gloves. If you don't have gloves, so you can use a shovel. Okay, so they just, for safety reasons, we're going to pass out gloves.
So do we put on top of these?
No, you're fine with
You're
those.
fine with both. Daddy with gloves on the side.
You can use both sides of the mount.
Ronnie? Ronnie, walk with Dad there. Sorry.
Folks, you can come forward and place earth into the grave.
Dave, תן כבוד לאבא שלך קודם.
I'm trying to fill it up with.
Dad first.
Coming out
I
again.
know, but it's,
Right. First, and then
That's
1, 2,
right.
3, and then everybody.
so do you hear what they're saying about me? The whole world.
Nothing we don't say about you every day.
We need you.
And then they
Right.
Barb, after, no, Becky.
They're not taking it. They've never been through this.
Sad, sad.
Thank you. Diego?
Ronnie?
Yes, sir.
I'll take your gloves once you're done. Yeah, put the rest in and then we'll have the gentleman take care of it. Just a moment. We're going to ask the gentleman from the cemetery to place the rest of the earth into the grave. Rabbi Wolf will continue with the mourner's Kaddish. Then at the end of the service, we'll ask everyone, the people that aren't not wearing a kriya, the non-immediate family will form a shura, a double aisleway, and the family will walk through and we'll offer them the traditional words of consolation. And for those of you who are here, you'll find those words, the Hamakom Yenachem, on the back of the service folder.
Atsu Tommy Poliki Holder Mishpat Elamuna Venova Sadik Yashu, Atsu Tom Hol Pel Mir Malatifo, Ashal Matav Malmim, Samakai Merit Elba Yaal, Atsu Tom Hol Masim Yamalamata Saim of Isa Chesed Hinam, Lonu, Tas. בזכות הנגד כיסא הנקשיב ועשה, הצעתי בכל דרך וחצי תום ערך הפעם מולי רחמים, חמונה וחוסנה עלו בויס ובונים לך כי לך עודן עשי חויס והרחמים, צדיק אתה עדיני לא מיסו לך אחייס, השביעות לפיקתן כל רוחייס, חליל לך זכרני אלוהינו חייס, וינענך ברחמלינו פיקו חייס, כי לך עודן רחם ועשלי חייס, אדם בן שונה יהיה, Oy 11 shanim yichya ma yislay kloy hoye baruch dayana emes memes mechaya baruch gemes dinay mishet akol bein mishalon mkhash bein bedinay fakol ishmay haday yitaynu yadan adonai ki tzedek mishpatecha tisak bidovach vesisk mishpatecha vein harim acham mishpatecha tzadik ata adonai v'yoshem mishpatecha dayana mishet tzedek ve'emes baruch dayana mishkol mishpatet tzedek ve'emes nefesh kol chavi yedecha tzedek moli yimin chavi yedecha rachma petesein yedecha v'selam malach herav yedecha כדי לעצב רב הלילי, שנך פקוחס כל כוח הדרך בני אדם, לעשייס לאיש כדרכיו וכפרים על עליו, להגד כי השני צורי ולהב לסבי, אדוני נתן, אדוני לקח, יהי שם אדוני מבורך, הוא רחמך פה ולא ישחיס, ויבוא להשיב אפו ולא יועי כל חמותו. Okay, we will now begin the mourner's Kaddish. Let's see, where is east? Which is east? This is east? I think that's east, right? Okay. Okay. We have the Kaddish? Yeah. Okay. Itadal v'yitadash shmei Rabba Yamad yiverach chirutei Yamlich machotei V'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei v'chal beit Yisrael Agala ובזמן קריב תאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך בעולם עולמי עולמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה ושבחתה ונחמתה תמירן ביעמה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו וכל ישראל אמרו אמן. עשה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל אמרו אמן.
Ladies and gentlemen, if I could ask those people here to follow me, please.
Diego, let's go.
We express our condolences.
Wait.
Okay, we're waiting. Kom, ונעכם אתכם, תושע אבירי ציון ירושלים. מקום ינחם אתכם, תושע אבירי ציון ירושלים. מקום ינחם אתכם, תושע אבירי ציון ירושלים. Almighty comfort amongst all those that mourn for Zion and Jerusalem. Let us hope and pray that we get together in the future only for happy and joyous occasions.